to another powerful episode of Pleasure Principles. I'm your host Avik, and today we are diving into something deceptively simple yet profoundly complex. Yes, the idea that pleasure is a good time. Yeah. So, dear listeners, we often think of pleasure as fleeting moments, a great meal, an intimate touch, on a night out with friends. But what if there were actual principles behind those moments that could help us not only maximize them, but also sustain them, right? So, I have a lovely guest today, dear listeners. My guest today is, please welcome Christian W Schnepf. Welcome to the show, Christian.
Thank you, Avik. It's my pleasure to be here.
Amazing.
Yeah.
so, so, dear listeners, like before we delve deep into the discussion, I'd particularly love to introduce you with Christian. So, Christian has built his life and career around answering that very question. He is an adventurous sociologist, human behavior expert, and the founder of the Science of Good Times. So his work blends deep research with lived exploration across the continents. So from TED Talks to national television, he has shared practical frameworks that help us understand like why we chase pleasure, why it sometimes slips away, and at the same time, how to consciously design more good times, both in daily living and in our physical and the sexual desires as well. So, I'll not take much of your time, dear listeners. Let's get into the discussion. And Christian, welcome to the Pleasure Principles. And I'm really, really thrilled to unpack what it really means to live in pursuit of good times. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Amazing, amazing. So, Christian, you often say that behind all human pursuits is the universal desire to maximize the good times. So,
Correct.
yeah. So, I mean, from there, I'd love to ask, like, what exactly do you mean by the good times?
Yeah,
So it is different. Yeah.
Yeah, that is an excellent question. And a good time can be defined very simple as a moment or a moment in time you're attracted to be in. So every time you're in this present moment and you feel like you would like to escape this moment, then you're not having a good time, you're having actually a bad time. When you are in a present moment and you say, I don't want to escape it, but I don't know neither, I don't want to be here neither, then it's not a good time either. So a good time is something you deliberately say, I want to be in this moment. And this can be an attraction towards the situation itself with everything that makes the situation up. That can be the social environment, that can be the things you're doing, the things you're getting, where you are, and even being in your own skin. And if you feel attracted to all of those things within this moment, this is generally described as a good time.
Right. So, I mean, I was the reason behind I was asking about how is this different from just chasing the happiness and the short term pleasure. So, if good times are kind of I'd say deeper than happiness, then what would you say? Like, what kind of role do fleeting pleasures play in sustainable? I mean, sustaining them.
Yeah, the issue with fleeting pleasures is
Hmm.
nowadays in our society that they usually cause damage for the long term. I'll give you an example as we're on the pleasure principle. Let's take the example of I'm eating something that gives me the ultimate good time in the very moment. If I go to the supermarket and I'm only looking for what gives me temporarily the best time, you probably end up in the snack department and eat some sweets. So, yes, you're having a good time eating it, but immediately afterwards, or latest later, a few days later, you regret it because it somehow has a negative effect on your body, perhaps on your finance, on your mood, and therefore over also on your relationships, the way you deal with them, etc. So going after our current economic design and societal practices for a fleeting moment and trying to get the most out of this usually ends up in a long-term disadvantage. While good time itself as we want to have as many good times as possible for as long as possible, the objective lies within that we make a balance, perhaps sometimes a trade-off, but certainly we pay attention to that it gives us a good time in the very moment when we consume something or do something, but also has a long-term advantage. So, for example, in nature, sex is exactly this. It gives you a good time in the very moment, but it also ensures the ongoing existence of the species, of us. So you have some children later. And this is quite practical in the past, especially if your children were supporting you in surviving and making life better. So nowadays, it can go the other way around. If you can't finance your children, then it might cause to some struggle in the future, even though it gave you a short-term good time. However, if you set yourself financially stable and you're sure about that you want to be with your partner and you can take care of that, of the being of the child you're creating, then short-term good time, short-term pleasure equals long-term pleasure.
Exactly. So, wow, it's really fascinating because I'd say like most of us are kind of where to chase the quick wins, but um, what you are saying is that like those small pleasures are only meaningful when they're part of a large rhythm of life. Yeah.
Yeah, short-term pleasure should lead to a long-term pleasure. Say it like this. If it leads to a long-term disadvantage, we usually have regrets having taken it.
Mm. True. Exactly. And also like the principles of a good time, you have developed that the good time ratio and the good time framework. So uh, if you can have a breakdown for us like one or two principles that actually help someone measure like whether they are having enough good times or not.
Can you repeat that question, please?
Okay. So I'm saying like if you just break down or if you can just help us to understand about the good time ratio and good time framework,
Yeah.
one or two principles basically to help so that people can also identify like if they are having a good time enough or not.
Yeah, that's a great question. Do I have a good time or not? And how good is it actually? I had this question as well many years ago and developed in my PhD the good time ratio metric, which is in short GTR. And GTR measures basically the proportion of the times you're feeling attracted towards versus the times you are neutral to or even feeling an aversion towards. And let's make an example. You say you have 100 days, and 50 days of this time you said this is amazing, I really love it, and 50 days of this time you wished to be somewhere else. Then in that case, your good time ratio, your GTR, is 50%. So the goal over a whole lifetime, so let's go from 100 days to 100 years, the goal over a lifetime is to maximize those days and those moments you feel attracted towards versus the moments you're not. So someone who says 80 years of my life I really enjoyed and only 20 years I did not, well, that person I would consider as quite successful with an 80% good time ratio GTR over a whole lifetime. And the question is, how can we increase this? What leads to higher good times for the long term versus what leads to a lower good time ratio? So in that case, that is the metric behind, and I explain briefly how it works. So life has five areas within life unfolds, and where we can feel attracted to or feel aversion towards, aversion from. And one of the area is yourself. So do you feel attracted to be in yourself, be in your body? Or do you feel an aversion towards? Or do you say it's okay, but not really nice? That's the one area. The same question you're asking yourself for the things you're doing. Do you feel attracted to and like doing what you do, or rather not? And also what you're getting. For example, if you're working, do you feel attracted to the things you're getting from work, your acknowledgement, your finance, etc.? Then the other last two areas are the environment. Do you like where you are? Or do you feel like, I'm just here because I can't be anywhere else? And actually, if I could choose, I would leave any possible moment. And the last area, which usually is listed in our overview at the second, is the social environment. So, do you feel attracted to the people in your life? And as we hear on the pleasure principles, that's we can take it literally. Do you feel attracted to those people? It doesn't have to be necessarily sexually, but if you're in a relationship with someone, in an intimate relationship, how sexually attracted are you to this person? And the stronger you are attracted, the better your time is. Except of out of those sexual moments, you feel an absolute aversion and said, I rather run away, and we only have conflicts. So over time, you really would like to measure your good time ratio with that person. And if you calculate all of those 5 areas together, you end up having a total number, a total good time ratio of your day, and the more you do this, of your life. For this, so you as an audience, as a listener, you can ask yourself those questions, yeah, yourself. However, it might not be the absolute accurate answer you're getting out of it, but just asking yourself. So for this, we actually developed a tool to measure it. It's goodtime.app, and you can test this, and you get a number, and you can track it over time, and you see if your times are getting better or worse.
That's lovely. That's the lovely thing. Yep. And also that uh how can someone who is stuck in the stress, or I'd say begin and shift their ratio, then even in a small ways, how would you suggest?
I would start bringing myself into a position in all of those 5 areas where I'm feeling certainly neutral towards it. So, say my environment doesn't pull me down. I might not say I like it, but I'm at least at a point where I'm saying it's okay. It doesn't drain my energy. The same with the people, the same with my activities, which includes work. I might not love my work at that moment, but at least I don't hate it. I don't feel resistance inside of me doing it. And eventually, also the things you're getting. The most important area, however, is the self. You should love yourself, and everything you're doing should support your self love and self acceptance. And for someone who wants to level up and says, I really hate everything in my life, I would suggest work on the 4 areas, except of self. That means your social environment, your actions, that what you get, and where you are, to get it to a neutral state that they don't pull you down. And in that moment, after you're stable, you don't get drained with your energy. So you're using your energy to improve your self love. You say, how can I love myself more? How can I accept myself more? How can I like more being in my body? How can I have more inner peace? And eventually, you start adjusting the things in your life and say, okay, maybe I'm skipping this kind of food or replacing it with something else that's level me up. And if you say, instead of eating this unhealthy snack, I'm eating something that's healthy, so it lifts me up. And after a while, you notice it makes your satisfaction with yourself better. However, you do not like the food or the process that makes your satisfaction with yourself better. So you try to optimize the good time, the pleasure of eating healthy stuff, healthy stuff. So instead of eating unhealthy stuff, you eat healthy stuff and try to make healthy stuff more pleasuring, yeah, giving you a better time. And you can do that the same with your work. For someone who says, I hate my work, try to not hate your work, that you say, it's okay. However, I would like to love my work, or at least start liking my work. So how can I do the things? So how can I get the finances I need? And how can I do the work I need to do for this in a way that I like it? And you can play around with those 5 areas. There are no more. It's really very simple, limited to 5 areas in your whole life. And you try to optimize here and there. And what I like to recommend is considering or seeing life as a game. So, as life is a game, there are the same 5 areas, but makes it more playful. You're the player, that's one.
Yeah.
There are other players. You can do some stuff, you can get some stuff, and you have a map to run around. And you want to optimize that all of those 5 things are amazing, with the focus and the goal that your character, your player, becomes the best player ever.
Yes. Yep. Understood. Definitely. I really love that because it makes the idea of joy less abstract kind of thing and more like something we can uh, intentionally design into our days. So, uh, definitely.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, life is there to be loved. And the goal of life is a game, is have a good time as much as possible. No one would play a game if it's not a good time. The
Mm,
goal of a game is neither to come to the end as fast as possible. The goal of a game is enjoying it. And if you don't enjoy it, you're playing it wrong. Or at least you're playing it in a way that's not really nice or not ideal. So how can you play this game in a way that you enjoy it more, that you actually like playing it?
yes. Yep. Exactly. Amazing. And when we're talking about the good times, I'd also love to bring about some of the contradictory angles as well. Um, uh, so some people would argue that too much focus on the pleasure or maybe the good times makes us kind of unproductive. So how would you respond to those people who see that the pursuit of pleasure as a kind of selfish, or you can call it a simple like lazy?
Yeah, no, I don't think so at all. And the goal is to have more good times. But those people who might think it is, yeah, it is makes us unproductive. Let's start with that
Mm,
concern. They don't consider the long-term good times. They consider the immediate good times. And yes, if I'm only going for what makes me feel good in the moment, without considering the long-term consequences, then yep, you probably are really unproductive. But if your goal is to flow freely, to have good times for as long as possible, so that's why it's also a good time ratio, the GTR. It's not a moment, good time moment. No, it's not. It's a good time ratio. So if you're saying I want to have the maximum of my life good times, then you need to be productive in creating a life in a way that it gives you the fruits that allow you to live it so freely and with those good times. So if you just binge watch, yeah, if you want to have maximum good times for one day, you probably just take drugs. And at the end of the day, you go late to bed and waste your whole your whole health, and you don't
mm,
work anything. However, that's only that's not sustainable. So if you can't do this tomorrow, and if you do this for a couple of days and perhaps a couple of weeks, well, the time afterwards is going to be hard. That's going to be a tough time because you need to get yourself out of there again. Eventually, you do need resources. Eventually, your body collapses and is not healthy.
mm,
And all of those things will make your time in the future very, very unenjoyable. In other words, not a good time and probably a very bad time. So if your goal is you're focusing on good times, you inevitably will say, okay, well, what can I do today that gives me all of those resources I need for long-term good time? How do I get money? How do I get love? How can I maintain a relationship? How can I build up a relationship? How can I pay attention to my body that in the long term I'm healthy and can do what I want without health problems? And then you say, okay, let's go to the gym. Let's do some work. Let's build a business. Let's
mm,
go out and socialize. Let's date. And when you do this, you're wondering then, okay, but I can't just hustle my ass off for the rest of the
mm,
year with the hope that it's making it better. No, second question is then, when I'm doing all of those things, how can I do them enjoyable? I think dating is a great example. If you want to have a long-term great relationship and you're getting into dating,
mm,
then yeah, it brings you probably a good time in the future. However, you're not going to the date with the attitude, let's suffer today for
mm.
tomorrow's good time. You probably want also to have a good time on the date itself.
Got it. So, what do you think? Is there any line between the uh, maximizing good times and escaping the responsibility?
A line between maximizing good times and escaping responsibility. I think escaping responsibility is leading to minimize good times. So you need to take responsibility to maximize your good times. Actually, in the recent years, I got asked how I see myself,
Mm,
and my my preferred answer to this is like a child with responsibility. As a child, I was playing and wanted to have good times,
okay.
not thinking about tomorrow. As an adult, I'm responsible for myself. I'm responsible for my partner. I'm responsible for my colleagues and team. And eventually also for my environment. So I know that my actions have consequences. However, I still want to play, but I need to play responsibly.
Exactly. Lovely. Definitely. And okay. So I mean, before we move, like, what would you suggest to someone who is listening today, like, who wants to design a life with the more good times? So where's the very first place they should start, or what they should follow?
I think you can summarize it with a few steps. Step number one would be, the macro step is get clarity about your vision. How would you envision your ideal life? So it's not just like, I want to have a good life or I want to have money. No, make it concrete. How do you envision your day in the future, your life in the future? And again, you can ask yourself those questions across all 5 areas. Who do I want to be? Which is the most important question. Who do I want to be in my vision? What kind of person am I when I'm seeing my future self? The same with, what kind of people would I like to be surrounded? How does it feel to be with those people? Do they give me energy? Do they drain me energy? Do they support me? Do they criticize me constantly? What does your future ideal social environment look like? Then also the things you're doing, your work. What attitude do you have towards your work? Does it give you joy? What do you imagine could be your work? And if you don't have an answer to this, how would you like to feel when you're doing your work? That's a beginning. Then also the things you're getting. Do you live in scarcity? Do you need to pay attention to every dollar you're spending? Or do you feel, no, I can buy whatever I want, and if I don't want it, it's also fine. And lastly, how do you envision your environment? Do you live in a small apartment, or perhaps even somewhere on the street? Or do you prefer, in your ideal vision, that you're living in a spacious place where there is a lot of light, where there's a clean kitchen, and where you can look out of the window and see some beautiful nature?
Mm.
That is a question you can ask yourself. How does your vision look like? And that's number one. And afterwards is, okay, when I know this goal now, let me make a commitment. Let me make a commitment to go in that direction, that I'm working on this. I'm committing to this vision. I'm committing to this life. And I'm saying, I am on the way there. It's not something I will get. It's something I have already inside of me. I decided I have it, and I'm working towards this. And after this commitment, you're just filling the pieces. You're looking for, what helps me to get in this direction. Okay, let's go for it. And what leads me away from it? And what perhaps leads me through a detour to where I'm going. But I'm never going the other direction. And that that starts becoming a game. And you can play around, you can try, and you can fail, and you can learn from it. But you're sticking towards this direction until you're there, and then you enjoy it. And it doesn't make sense to go into a direction and say, I want to be the boss of a company. And eventually you're there and you're stressed. So that's why it starts with, how do I want to feel in my future life? How does a good time feel for me? What would give me a good time? And if it doesn't give you a good time anymore, change it. What I would like to give to the listener who might ask himself or herself right now, okay, but I have difficulties to visualize. I have difficulties to feel this. One thing that is very helpful is calming yourself down firstly. Meditation is a wonderful tool for this. Breath work, breathing in for 1 second and breathing out for 2 seconds to calm your nervous system, is incredibly helpful, because that triggers in your body the understanding that you are safe. Your sympathetic nervous system, that is usually responsible for flight, freeze, fight reactions, and make you stressed and anxious, is then shut down. And instead, the parasympathetic nervous system gets in, where you're more relaxed and you feel safe. So you're basically not running away from anything in that moment. And when you're in that state, you can then start thinking about, where do I want to run towards? And that becomes the foundation for you thinking about, how do I want to live my future life? How do I envision my life? So calm yourself down, bring yourself in a very calm and peaceful, loving environment where you feel content, where you feel enough, and pay attention to your body, that you feel really like this, relax. And when you're in that moment, think about your future life and then commit to it and then go there.
Lovely. Really amazing. I mean, that's a generous takeaway, I would say, dear listeners. It makes pleasure not just a kind of lofty idea, but something definitely you can begin weaving into your lives right after this conversation. So that's very important. So, Christian, this has been such an great conversation, I'd say, and you have given us a new lens to see the pleasure, like not as a kind of random luck or kind of guilty indulgence, but as a signs of conscious living. So, for all the listeners, like I hope today, I mean, reminded you that the good times are not something to wait for, but they are something you can design, you can nurture, and even you can measure as well. Definitely. So,
Yes.
yeah. So, think about your good times ratio and where you are investing your energy and where might you create a space for more joy, more intimacy, and more presence.
Yeah, and you don't even have to think about this.
Yeah.
You can measure it on our online web app. It's for free for now. So go on goodtime.app, goodtime.app, and just go through the assessment. It's science-based, and you have a clear number with a dashboard that doesn't just show you how good your times are, it also pinpoints what gives you a good time and where is your energy drained and what you can change. So it's a life navigation system.
Exactly. Perfect. So, dear listeners, what I'll do is I'll put all these details and the links into the show notes for your easy reference so that you can easily reach out and check out the app. Definitely. So, with this hope, until next time, this is your host Avik reminding you that pleasure is not a distraction from life. It's the rhythm that makes life worth living. So, go create some good times. Have a great day ahead. Thank you so much.